Welcome to the Cheerful Soundman podcast. I'm Eric Linus-Bunt, the Cheerful Soundman, here at Vivid Sky Productions in Gainesville, Florida, where we talk weekly about the ins and outs of working and living in the production industry and event industry. So today we're going to discuss a couple of different topics, but all related to, a very common theme in our podcast here is flexibility. So being flexible and adjusting on the fly. So today we're also going to talk about working outside of the country. So this will be, I'm in the US, so it'll be kind of focused from that perspective, but a lot of the same challenges come regardless of whenever you cross borders from one country to another. So recently, we just completed an event for Insomniac Events. They do EDC, a lot of very large events. This we just completed EDC SEA in the Bahamas, which was it was the tail end of, they did a cruise for several days. This was about a week before EDC in Orlando. So you could patrons went on a cruise. There were like 8 stages on the cruise. It was insane. The lineup, Subtronics, all these just crazy artists everywhere. And then they landed in Bimini, which is a very tiny island in the Bahamas. It's only a couple miles long, very skinny island. Landed at the cruise ship port. Everybody disembarked the cruise ship, came down, and then we had a massive rave set up on the beach that ended up turning into an overnight rave, basically all the way till sunrise. There was another stage by the pool as well. So it was a big event. Our portion was not the portion on the ship, but we were the portion there on the island. So that came with its own set of challenges. So as you can imagine, although Florida and Bimini are only, I think it's only 70 miles into the ocean, it's closer. It's as far from the beach in Fort Lauderdale to Bimini as it is from where we live to the beach. So it's a very short drive, like going to the next city over. And, this was on a ferry boat. And so there's a lot of challenges to go with it. And the biggest challenges are really related to customs, import, and shipping. So in this case, we had to do a lot with, we had to get everything there to the port, actually almost 2 full weeks in advance to have time to get everything sorted, organized, and cleared through customs. So they do, they send the dogs through for drugs and weapons and guns and explosives and whatever. They inspect everything. They also scrutinize and inspect everything to make sure what you say is in the case is actually in the case. Because these are big things when you're crossing the border, because you end up with, they don't want somebody bringing something in and then leaving it, and trying to get around tariffs and import taxes and things like that, or trading it out while they're there. You take, not so much in our industry, but it could be. But they don't want you taking a motorcycle over, a new motorcycle over and then bringing back an old one instead, as if it was the same one. So things like that. And that's a lot of that is the government protecting, the governments of both countries, protecting their borders, but also making sure they get their tariffs and taxes in too. So that being said, we've done a lot of jobs in the Bahamas over the years. So we kind of knew the drill already. There's a whole set of paperwork that goes with it called a carnet of goods, which gets all the information like where it was manufactured, what the replacement cost is, the dimensions, the weight. Anyway, I could get into all the nitty gritty of it. But there's a whole lot of paperwork that goes with it. There's a whole long process that goes with it. And then ultimately you're still at the mercy of, so we did all this, we took everything 2 weeks in advance. Then we rode the ferry over, and we got there and our gear actually was on the boat with us, funny enough. So it was supposed to have come over on a container ship 2 weeks prior or a week prior, something like that, and then be unloaded. But instead it was actually on the ferry boat with us underneath the boat because they had some shipping complications with, they had high seas for a few days with storms. It was just kind of delay after delay. And ultimately they opted to put it on the ferry boat. So again, a lot of flexibility involved in these things because it wasn't just our gear that was delayed. There was a whole staging crew that actually, and I know this sounds like a terrible gig, but they got to the island 3 days before we did, but no gear showed up. So they had nothing to set up, nothing to do. So I imagine they all left a little poorer because we were all staying at the tiny casino there, and that was pretty much all there was to do besides go to the beach. So beach and casino. So anyway, that whole crew was out there, but again, flexibility being the key, because once the gear did arrive, then we were doing 3 and 4 days worth of work all in one day versus, spread out. So additionally, with that and kind of the complications of travel back and forth and importing the goods and all that, you have the travel, which, again, I won't get too into detail. If you work for a company or if you're a freelancer, you'll have to address these things if you ever work overseas. But you do need to make sure your paperwork's in order. In our case, we were on it was a visa, specific production or film visa, something along those lines, that Insomniac had procured with the government that allowed us to travel in and out of the country. Because typically, too, if you just go, don't make that mistake. A lot of people make that mistake. They get hired for a gig or they're on a tour or something, and they go to another country. And if you work without a visa, you can get in a whole lot of trouble. You can get kicked out of the country. You can get banned from the country. You can get fined. They take stuff from you. All sorts of things, depending on the country, that can happen. And I experienced this years ago with a band I worked with that we worked we would play resort islands throughout the Caribbean. And again, we had to be very careful with our paperwork, what we told them we were doing, how we were doing it, what we were bringing in with us, what we were taking out with us. Because the other thing they're trying to protect, and much like you hear in our political landscape in the US, the politicians, the government, they're trying to protect their citizens too, and they don't want us coming in as a Florida production company and taking their work from, without having to pay a premium that goes back to the community. So that's where those tariffs and taxes come in. So yeah, making sure your paperwork's in order. And then, as always, the big one is being flexible. And because again, we got there, not only was the schedule all messed up, but they completely changed sites. So we were supposed to be on the actual beach, but when they did the site survey a month and a half before, that was before 2 hurricanes, which didn't directly hit. They actually were on the other coast, but they pulled a lot of beach out. So it actually eroded the beach. So now the beach was actually 40 feet narrower than it was when they did the site survey. So they actually had to redo, and this is a testament to the great team at Insomniac and their stage managers and production managers and advanced team that got there, and they got there and said, oh crap, we have to pivot. We have to completely change everything. So what they did instead was, we were originally on the beach. There was a bit of like a rock ledge and then a parking lot up top that was sand as well. But we ended up, they put the stage up there, and it was never supposed to be up there. Also, it couldn't fit. It was supposed to be a 60-foot wide stage, and it had this beautiful big pieces. The company Luna Soul, I think, is the vendor that built just these beautiful, scenic pieces. And then Design Oasis in South Florida lit them really nicely. So these other, multiple vendors involved, and their adjustments were actually a lot harder than ours. So we had to make some pretty serious adjustments because we had designed everything to be on the beach. We had designed it to be 60 feet wide, which fit my deployment as far as the amount of subs. I had 20 subwoofers, stacks of 2 across, and the math, the distance, the spacing between the subs, everything worked out for the 60-foot stage. And now we have a 40-foot stage. Now, not only do we have a 40-foot stage, but now I am 20 to 30 feet above everybody's head, pointed straight down, and this is all ground stack. So if I was flown, I would just bend the array back. I would just curve the array more to point down. But in this case, had to get creative with the deployment. So we actually ended up, and then also putting all that sub energy 30 feet above everybody and 50 feet back from the first audience member. I also felt like I was going to lose a lot. So I ended up, I got my laptop out, opened up the software, started changing around distances, ended up actually accidentally making an end fire array, which was awesome. It ended up giving me a lot of extra push on the base. But basically I did some of the subs, it was 6 or 8 of the subs up top, and then we put some down on the beach, again, that was narrower. And I delayed them and anyway, got them all time aligned. And then we also put some bigger stacks on the beach of front fills that were almost like enough to be a main PA. So ultimately, I personally, everybody was very happy with it. It sounded amazing. It's hard to get over it as the tech and as, in this case, as an artist, if you will, of I designed this product to work a certain way. And I designed the stage and spent a lot of time designing it. Actually, I had all my cables loomed together, taped together nicely. I had labeled for easy deployment like you would on a tour. And then basically all that was out the window as soon as I got there. But again, we're flexible because we can't do anything. Insomniac can't do anything about the beach literally not existing anymore. So we can either get in our feelings and get grumpy about it, or we can start finding solutions. And so that's what we did. We jumped in and we started pivoting, pulled out software, made some adjustments, ended up, did a round or two of revisions. I actually phoned a friend to Chris on our team and just had him take a second look at it. He actually gave me a couple of cool little pointers of things that I could adjust. And so I tried it a couple different ways till I got the best rendering of the space, the best, most even coverage. And then we rolled with it. It ended up being fantastic. The stage looked fantastic. It actually ended up looking really cool, being up like at the top of the hill. And all of that, again, with some people and some vendors that you work with, you'll never hear the end of it. It's just, everything changed. It wasn't it wasn't supposed to be like this. Versus, again, a testament to Lunasol, I forget the special effects, the laser people's name, and then Design Oasis did the lighting, and Island Productions did the staging. So anyway, great group of folks that we work with on various projects. Everybody pivoted, and I didn't really hear any griping, complaining, bitching and moaning, any of that stuff. People just pivoted. Everybody knew the situation. We're like, all right, it is what it is. We'll change it. We'll fix it. And we did just that. And it was a little snug on the stage. It was definitely smaller than it should have been. But we were able to make the pivot. And again, that's the big thing. I feel like this is becoming my theme throughout. It should be like flexibility with the Cheerful Soundman. But that is one of the biggest things, one of the biggest, it comes naturally to me. It doesn't come naturally to everyone. I recognize that I'm a little more just naturally flexible and not very rigid on things. But it is definitely still a skill that you can learn and develop. You take some deep breaths, think about, what are the alternatives? And in this case, like, we're not going to stop the party. We're not going to come all that way and say we can't do it anymore. So how can we pivot to make the best experience for our client and for the ravers on the beach? So that's flexibility.